Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Megan McNeil. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist. Please watch the following video with caution. As usual, it contains descriptions of violence, homicide, suicide attempt. On January 30th, 2019, a man named Mr. Winchester killed his wife by strangling her to death before trying to kill himself. This case went to trial in December 2021, and it was a fairly high-profile case for the state of Oregon at the time. Mr. Winchester and his wife, Annie, had been high school sweethearts, together for over 20 years. At the time of the homicide, Mr. Winchester was working at an insurance company. He's the father of two sons who were 18 and 20. He volunteered as a coach for their sports teams. He was a beloved member of the community. His wife, Annie, had been diagnosed with colorectal cancer in 2011, and she needed a colostomy bag. After this, she stayed in her bedroom most of the time. Mr. Winchester was her primary caretaker and the primary caregiver of the two sons. In the summer of 2018, the doctors told Annie the cancer had gone into remission, and the chemotherapy port was removed. A couple of months later, in the fall of 2018, they found that the cancer had returned with a vengeance. The doctors said she would be lucky to make it to the spring of 2019. Annie's goal was to see her second son graduate high school, and the doctors thought this was optimistic. Prosecutors had the theory that Mr. Winchester killed his wife because he finally got tired of taking care of her, or because he wanted the $100,000 life insurance policy. It's unclear how he would have spent the $100,000 insurance policy if he had been successful in ending his own life, but that was the theory of the prosecutors at the time. So what was his motive? In the months prior to the homicide, Mr. Winchester was taking care of his wife. He was making dinner every evening for his sons. One of them was in college, the other was in high school. After dinner, he and his boys would have tea and long conversations at the dining room table. His wife preferred to remain in their bedroom. She was in a considerable amount of pain at the time, and she was also taking a lot of pain medication. And, according to the family sources, she liked to drink a lot of wine. Family members, including both sons and one of the sons' girlfriends, reported that Annie often talked about her desire to die. She said things like, "Just put me out of my misery," or "I can't wait to see my mom in heaven." She and Mr. Winchester had actually looked into physician-assisted suicide, but they decided not to pursue it. Even still, everyone knew Annie was suffering and wanted to die. The family also reported that Mr. Winchester never seemed to resent taking care of Annie. He loved her. He didn't mind taking care of her and the sons. So why did he kill her? Several weeks prior to the homicide, Mr. Winchester developed a viral meningitis, and he was hospitalized for about a week. His symptoms were severe headache and vomiting, among other things. After his discharge from the hospital, Mr. Winchester's symptoms continued and new ones started to appear, including confusion and memory problems. His sons reported they would no longer allow Mr. Winchester to drive because he kept driving his car up onto the sidewalks. They said he could not remember his phone number, and he could not remember the usual meal he ordered at a favorite restaurant, which was the same meal every time. In the evenings, instead of having conversations with the boys at the dining room table, he would sit alone by himself in a dark room staring at nothing. Work colleagues said he made long, rambling statements that made no sense during meetings. Over the weeks, Mr. Winchester became more confused and severely depressed. He was unable to figure out what was wrong with his life or how to fix it. He came to the conclusion that the thing that made the most sense was for him to end his own life. So he decided he would hang himself. Though before he started, he realized that if he was dead, no one would be around to care for Annie. She would die alone, and he believed it would be selfish to commit suicide and leave her by herself, suffering until her own death. So he killed her first by strangling her. Then he wrote a note to his sons apologizing that he could no longer watch Annie suffer and for being a failure, that he saw no other way out of his despair, and they would be taken care of by other family members. Then Mr. Winchester went to the stairwell. He put a noose around his neck, and he jumped from the second-story landing. The rope broke, and he fell to the floor, breaking a couple of his ribs. The rope was still around his neck, so he got a utility knife to cut the rope off. And then he laid in the bed next to Annie and decided he would slit his throat to try to die next to her. While he was laying next to Annie, some of the remaining air in her lungs escaped and made a gurgling sound, and Mr. Winchester thought she was still alive. So he used the utility knife to slice her neck to make sure she was dead before he followed her. Mr. Winchester passed out for a while. He came to, realized he was still alive. So he sliced his arms, and then he went to the family's hot tub, which was unheated. It was very cold. It was January. He sat in the hot tub for a while, trying to bleed out. It didn't work. He eventually decided he would try to die by carbon monoxide poisoning. So he went into the garage, turned on his car, and laid by the exhaust pipe, breathing in the exhaust fumes in his final attempt to die. Not long after, one of his sons came home from school, opened the garage door, and found Mr. Winchester lying on the ground, bloody and near death. Mr. Winchester told his son, "Don't go upstairs. I killed Mom." After finding Mr. Winchester dying on the garage floor, his son called 911 and Mr. Winchester was taken to the hospital for treatment, then to county jail, where he was charged with murder and facing life in prison. The neurologist on this case determined that Mr. Winchester's viral meningitis had developed into encephalitis, which is swelling of the brain, because the body's immune system is attacking the brain cells. We know that many viruses can cause encephalitis, but doctors are not sure why certain people get it and others don't. It can lead to symptoms like headaches, seizures, hallucinations, depression. While the level of severity that occurred for Mr. Winchester is not common, it can happen. As part of my research for this case, I connected with the author Susanna Cahalan, who wrote the book Brain on Fire, which is a memoir about her own harrowing experience having encephalitis, where she became psychotic and she was misdiagnosed as having schizophrenia. The link to her book is below in the comments for those of you interested in buying and reading it. The Winchester case went to trial, and a documentary was made about this case and the Winchester family. They followed the family for months, and they filmed the trial process also. The documentary is called Accused, and if you're interested in watching it, I've included the link below in the comments. If you've watched the documentary, then you know what happened in Mr. Winchester's case. But in a nutshell, the case went to trial in December 2021, and Mr. Winchester used the insanity defense. Basically what that means is that a person has symptoms of a mental illness that cause them to engage in the criminal behavior. They don't realize the behavior is criminally wrong, or they are unable to stop themselves from committing the act, even if they know it's wrong. For Mr. Winchester, after he recovered and he no longer had symptoms of encephalitis, he could not understand how his brain had become so disturbed, his thinking was so distorted, that killing his wife and himself made the most sense. He loved his wife, and they had been together for 20 years, more than 20 years, and he was grief-stricken that he had ended her life. The prosecutors and the forensic psychologist hired by the prosecutors believed Mr. Winchester didn't meet criteria for the insanity defense because he wrote a suicide note, and that showed he knew his behavior was wrong. They also said that Mr. Winchester had closed the blinds to the window that showed where his body would have been hanging if he had successfully hung himself. And they said that also showed he knew what he was doing was wrong, and therefore he wasn't insane at the time of the crime. The jury disagreed. They unanimously found Mr. Winchester guilty except for insanity. In most cases, what that means is that the defendant then goes to the state hospital where they receive treatment and they're committed to the state hospital for an indefinite period of time. But in Mr. Winchester's case, because the symptoms of the encephalitis had fully resolved, he no longer had any symptoms of mental illness. The hospital discharged him after 2 months being in the hospital system. Mr. Winchester has now gotten another job. He spends time with his sons, and he's trying to move on with his life and recover from this incident that happened to him and his family. If you're interested in more of these videos, please hit like or subscribe. I have full videos on YouTube and training videos on Substack. Thanks for watching.